Good afternoon. This is Christine Hummel coming back to you with one of the podcasts to talk about how we can tell our stories as women professionals to help educate and teach the younger generation of women that are out there confidence and what they need to know to be successful in their professional careers, no matter what they choose to do. So today I have my first professional with me as my guest, and I'll turn it over to Kristina and you in a second. But I've known Kristina for quite some time. We worked together probably 20 years ago. And we've continued to mentor each other throughout our careers, not just in a professional setting, but also personally within our families and having children. So first of all, it's been an awesome relationship. And thank you, Kristina, for coming to the show today. So I'm going to throw it to you to introduce yourself and kind of a little bit about your story.
Okay, thanks, Christine. And also, before I get started, thank you to Christine, who's been such a mentor and friend of mine for so long. And what I think you're doing here is just fantastic, and I'm honored to be a part of it. So thank you. So yeah, a little bit about me, Kristina Sullivan, born and raised in Chicago. I've lived in the city for 10 years, recently moved to the suburbs with my family of 3. I've worked in the rare disease specialty pharmaceutical industry for the past 15 years, where I met Christine. Look forward to talking about my journey a bit today.
Awesome. Maybe go back a little bit when you first started your career. Talk about a little bit of what you looked at in college, how you decided right out of college with your major. What were you thinking in terms of, did you feel like you had the right tools back in the day? I guess we're not that old, but back in the day, did you miss something that you feel like you could have had looking back, or did you feel like you were prepared? And then how did you take the leap? Like, how did you decide what you were going to do next? Did you have this organized plan that it was step by step, or did things just come your way and you tackled them, as they came in? So maybe talk a little bit about like when you graduated college, what that was like and how you took your next steps forward.
Yeah, I love this question. I don't think it's easy.
No, that's why I asked it.
Yes. When I went to college, I wanted to be a teacher, actually.
Oh,
I wanted
interesting.
to be an English teacher. You probably don't know that.
I could see that.
I had this phenomenal, high school English teacher, and she just really inspired me and motivated me to do for other high school kids what she did for me, which was, just kind of find yourself.
Yeah.
English teachers, they help you a lot your junior and senior year of high school. And then I also sort of had a little inkling of maybe wanting to be an attorney. So I went to U of I, University of Illinois, with an English major. And I'm in my freshman and sophomore year of college, and I'm reading all these massive books and spending all this time on, old English lit, and I'm just snooze. Like, I'm so bored. I can't do this. So I had been interning at a law firm, and one of the lawyers said to me, and I think this is a huge, one of the points I'm going to make about figuring out your way is talking to other women, right? Talking to other women in your internships, in your mom's friends, whoever inspires you, for advice or what they did. And she said to me, get a business degree. Like, if you don't know what you want to do, no one, their sophomore or junior year of college knows usually. Yep. Get a business degree. It's a great baseline. It's a good jumping off point. You can do a lot with it. You can grow a lot with it. And so that's what I did. I went to business school. To my mom's dismay, she wanted me to be a teacher, so that was a bit of a, thing. But I went to business school, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So then back to your question, I graduated in a recession. So that was tough. I truly was like, there are no jobs. There weren't a lot of job offers. And I got a job in staffing, where, that's where you're recruiting people. You're kind of like an outsourced HR team. And I was in sales, and, I met a few clients, got to know them really well. They got to know my brand of delivering, even if it was, recruiting and hiring. And one day I was helping them recruit for a financial analyst role. And I said to the hiring manager, what about me? And because we got to know each other, he hired me. So that's my other, embedded in the answer is my other piece of advice to college grads. One, you're not going to know what you want to do. Try to do something that sends you in a general direction of what you're passionate about and what kind of lights you up, even with the work, right? Like, if you're bored in class, probably not a good move, right? That you're not going to want to do that the rest of your life if you're bored. And then 2 is, when you graduate, you got to be scrappy. I don't think there's, unless you have all of these connections, which I did not. My dad was a policeman, my mom was a teacher, and God bless them and what they did for our community. But I didn't have anyone saying, here's your internship, here's your entryway. So you have to meet people and get a job that will introduce you to a breadth of things, like a lot of clients or a lot of industries to help you sort of figure out where you want to go next. I don't think there's a lot of people that have one job and that's the thing they do the rest of their lives. I think it's a series of decisions and growth opportunities, throughout your career.
Now, there's a lot of meat in everything you just said. So maybe to go back a little bit, and I do agree. I think one of the key takeaways of what you said that we can come back to is people, no matter where you are, you have no idea that person that you are working with, that you meet at a restaurant, that you meet on an airplane, what their experiences are and what you can learn from them. And so, is it hard to talk to people that you don't know, that it's uncomfortable or you're tired? Absolutely. But, one thing that I heard you say is be scrappy, but get to know someone. And, it may not be anything for you, but if you can pick up little bits and pieces along each person along the way, that builds confidence and that helps you figure out what you want to do. And who knows what that person, in terms of opportunity, what they can provide to you. But to go back to your mom and dad, you mentioned that your mom was disappointed that you weren't going to become a teacher. So walk me through, the expectations she had for you when you were growing up, and how that influenced you either way to become a teacher or not, right? And then you said she was disappointed. So why was she disappointed? And then, like, to this day, how did you work with that? Because I dealt with that too, right? My expectation was to be a German and Catholic culture, be a mom and a wife first, and then everything else comes later. And as professional women, that doesn't motivate everyone equally. And I think people have to know that that's okay. If you choose to be a mom and a wife and that fulfills you, great. If you choose to be a professional and that is your primary and that motivates you, great. And to each their own. And everyone has to be okay with that because everyone's different. So I'm trying to ask you that question about your parents to help contribute to some of the people that may have those cultural, religious, or family pressures, or even workplace pressures of expectations. So walk us
Yeah.
through kind of like your mom and dad's expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, it can be rooted in a good thing, right? Like, I think my mom in particular thought I wanted to be a teacher. She thought, what are all these pressures that are changing your mind, right? When in fact it was me, it was internal. It was my gut was saying this isn't right. I'm not coming alive with this
Mhm.
education and with the idea of being a teacher anymore. The pressure, it's not like a lot of pressure. It's just like little comments of like, oh, you would have been such a good teacher. Oh, look at you with kids. You would have been such a good teacher. Part of me like,
Passive aggressive is what I call that.
a little bit, maybe a little bit. And it definitely tugged at me. I think there's this part of me that's like, and it might resonate with some younger generations. There's definitely this like altruistic nature to being a teacher, right? Like, and that resonates with me too, like helping people. I was looking for this integrated point in business where I could also help people. That was important to me, but business made me come alive and like the solving business problems was exciting to me. So my mom, I would say over the years, that type of like commenting continued until just recently, actually just this year when she lived with me, when they were building a new house. I finally said to her over a cup of coffee, I was like, kind of bothers me when
Good
you
for
say
you.
that.
Good for you.
Like I've always sort of felt like I disappointed you. Did I disappoint you?
Good for you. Good for you.
And she said, "No, oh my gosh, you didn't disappoint me. That's not what that was about. I just truly I see how good you are with kids that's now playing out with you being a mom."
Oh,
And, that's really what I was commenting on. So I definitely felt that pressure all these years. Did she mean it at times? I think she did. But also, I think I was assuming something where I probably should have had that conversation a long
right.
time ago.
No, that's a
I
great
should have
point.
said to her, and I wasn't brave enough to a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
until just recently, I just kind of, I don't want to address that, but it was good to have that talk.
Yeah, good for you to ask that question. I think a lot of daughters or even children of their parents, fathers or mothers, like you want to please them, you seek for their approval. It's just natural, right?
Yeah.
As a child, and you want that approval of your parent, And then along the way, you're hearing all these comments. And I don't think people realize how impactful that is when you're hearing that. And now, as a mom, I'm like, oh crap, am I saying that to my kids, right? When I'm disappointed or they're not fulfilling the expectations that I have. So I think it's important for, whoever's listening to this woman specifically, that's a great idea to have a conversation with your parent and ask them, are they disappointed? And if they are, I think we have to be okay with it, because what makes them happy doesn't necessarily mean what makes us happy for 100 different reasons: generations, environment, personality, genetics. Who cares, right? It doesn't
Yep.
matter. Everyone should kind of accept it as is. So no, I
Yeah.
think that's interesting how parents influence it. So I hope we are not doing that to our kids. That's for
I
sure.
know. I think about it a lot too. Yeah.
Yeah. I try to ask very open-ended questions and be very open-minded, but it's very challenging at certain times.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that I wanted to talk to you about is, you talked about how you started in your career. You were scrappy, you tried to talk to people. And I remember when you came into the first organization that we worked together, you talked to everyone, and there was no job you said no to at that time. You were doing, financial analysis, analytical analysis, and because you were ready to roll up your sleeves no matter what, a lot of people pulled you into their, business scenario planning or conversations, and therefore you were able to get exposure to a lot of leadership, and you learned a lot, right? And so then we started like we pulled Christina into all these different projects because we knew she had a skill set and she could adapt and work with anyone. So I think that that did work in that environment. Along the way, as women specifically, and the industry that Christina and I work in is very male dominated. And I would say a subset of that, called trade, it's about 90% at the time, if not higher, was male dominated. And I spoke a little bit about, overcoming some of those barriers and working in a male dominated industry. Even today, we say it's 50-50, but it's not. Like, you're always overcoming a barrier. So if you can talk us through a time that you experienced, doesn't have to just be in a male environment, but a challenging obstacle that you had certain biases to you that people were assuming, and a very difficult decisions you had to make to overcome it. Just walk us through that, and more for the people listening to understand how to have that confidence to overcome that obstacle, and what questions can you ask yourself or that person, and not be afraid of challenging the person, because I don't think we should sit here and just take it. You have to challenge the obstacle in order for change to happen. So I'll kind of
Mhm.
throw it to you to walk us through kind of a couple, it could be one or a couple examples of something you had to overcome.
Yeah, yeah. I thought about this question a lot and it had me reminiscing on different challenges. The one thing I'll say is, challenges in your career before we even get into it, being uncomfortable is not a bad thing, actually. Like, you realize like how much you learn and grow every time you're uncomfortable. And saying yes to things is a way to be uncomfortable. So that's
Yep.
like being uncomfortable and saying yes and doing work gains you confidence to take on the next level of
Yep.
discomfort, right? I think that's really true. So the two I would share in sort of the spirit of what we're discussing. One is actually, Christine, you gave me some really good advice when we at our first company we worked at together, and you were saying to me, what do you want to do with your career? I think you need to go outside. I think you need to try some other companies. This is, you're giving me really sound advice for where I was at in my career. And I had a boss at the time who said, "Oh, you're not ready for that. You think you can do? You're not ready for that. You can't do that work." And I can't. I mean, I have goosebumps just talking
I know,
about it
I
right now.
do
I
too. I know
can't.
what you're talking about.
I can't. What do you?
Yeah.
Whoa, I can't. And then
Yeah.
it was, I can't. Like, oh my gosh, I can't. What is Christina thinking? Like, I can't do this. And that imposter syndrome and getting over it. But then I realized something from that experience, which is, and I think it's very important to know what motivates you. What
Mhm.
motivates you? What gets you going? What like gets you out of bed? What gets you working harder? What gets you competitive? I'm very competitive innately. And at first I felt this imposter syndrome and sort of like, wow, my boss said that to me. That hurts. Like, that feels like
Mhm.
he doesn't believe in me. He doesn't think I'm someone who can grow and take on new challenges. Right. And then the next quick part was, I'm going to prove him wrong. Am I going to show everyone how much I actually can do that?
Correct.
And that's very motivating to
Yep.
me, is go ahead and tell me I can't, and you're done. Because
Yeah.
that's like the ultimate motivation for me, is that
Why do you think he said you can't do it? Why do you think he said that to you?
I thought a lot about that. He was a good asset on his team, and I think he didn't want to lose me. That's actually
Yeah.
what I think it was. I
I agree
think
with that. And then was it a cultural difference too?
yes, and I think there was a bit of there might have been a cultural difference for him, that he felt women should
Yep.
stay in more subordinate roles. I do.
Correct. Yeah, yeah,
And that's
yeah,
what he was used to and comfortable with.
yeah. So what ended up happening then? Did you leave the
I
organization and
left.
what
I
did you
ran
accomplish?
so fast. I had him not going in my mind, but I did. I left and I went on to another company that I still think was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. I went and traveled to California. I almost moved there.
Yep.
I launched two incredible medicines for a highly unmet need disease state. It was probably one of the most exciting, impactful 10 years of my life. And had I said no to that, I can't even imagine what my life would be like today, because it's led to
Right.
so many other things and so
Right.
many other experiences, both professionally and personally.
Were you scared when you took that leap, when you made that
Yes.
decision? Were you scared? Yeah. What were you scared of? What were you scared of?
I mean, first of all, that I couldn't do it, right? That what if I
Failing.
can't pull this off, you
Failing.
know?
Yeah.
Um, Second of all, it required a bunch of travel all of a sudden I had recently graduated several years before, not recently, a few years out. And all of a sudden, I'm traveling the country all the time. I remember being at an airport and calling my dad and crying, like, what am I
Oh,
doing here? I just landed in San Francisco. It's 11 at night. I have to get in a car and go to a hotel. How am I supposed to do this? But I did, and that my parents were very not happy. I
you're like,
was
you should have
doing.
became a teacher. Teachers don't have to,
Why are you
they don't
down the
have
street
to
teaching
travel.
at the
We
local high
told you
school?
so. We told you so.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, I was definitely afraid, and I had to hide some of that fear. When you
Hmm.
take a job and you convince them to hire you and that you're going to do the job, you can't go in there. They're not your therapist,
Right.
like, no, I got it. I can do this. I will figure it out. And again, those saying yeses and the discomfort I'd previously been in prepared me for that continued discomfort, right?
Yeah. So before you go to your second example, you said you were uncomfortable, but you're competitive. So you took the challenge, and that's probably where you got the confidence from.
Yeah,
Right. And so even though you were uncomfortable, you kept plowing through it because you wanted to win. You wanted to
yeah,
show and prove people wrong. But what about that person that doesn't have that confidence? Like, there's different people that are competitive. Some people are not competitive. Some
yeah,
people don't need that drive. They're motivated by other factors. So, what advice would you give? A lot of people don't like to be uncomfortable either, right? A lot of people
yeah,
don't like change. And if I look at my daughter's 22, graduated college, kind of why this podcast has been created, like how do they get okay with being uncomfortable? How can we teach them, or what do we say to them if they don't have the confidence, if they're not competitive? So how would you walk someone through that maybe doesn't have the same characteristics as you did at that time?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that goes back to, you have to have listen, they're all at an age, we're all still at an age where you're constantly like rediscovering yourself,
Yep.
right? You don't really know when you're graduating college all these questions you and I have had years of
Yep.
siphoning through and figuring out. But I do think the number one question is like, what lights you up?
Yep.
What motivates you? And then it all stems from there, right?
Yep.
So if what lights you up is you like drawing, okay, you like drawing. Like,
Yep.
what about that lights you up? And then what in the real world, is there any bridge to something like that to make money and to pay bills?
Yep.
Because I do believe you have to be able to do those things with a job. It can't just be a passion project, right?
Correct.
Is there anything, and maybe it's, maybe a few things light you up. Okay, consider all those things. But I think that that intrinsic motivation factor is important, and you have to find it. And if it's not, the competitive, I want to win, I want to prove you wrong thing, what is it? And there's different industries, maybe it's a teacher you want to be. Maybe it's like the difficult kids. And that's what, I mean, teachers have to have a lot of motivation, I
Right.
think, to go
A
to work
hundred
every day and
percent.
do what they do. It's such a
Hundred
hard
percent.
job, right?
Agreed.
So I think it's all about trying to have some real awareness, self-awareness of what excites you,
Yep.
and then building off of that.
Yeah. So
Does that
before
answer your
we,
question?
yeah, no, it does. And I'll let you go to your second example here in a minute. But I think what you're saying is what lights you up and coupled with what are your motivators? Because they might be
Yeah.
two
What are your
separate
motivators?
things.
Yeah.
So what lights you up to your example, it could be drawing, but then your motivators are you like to work with people, right?
Yeah.
Or your motivators are, and they don't have to be like a specific job qualification. I always ask people when I'm interviewing them, like, tell me, describe to me without any titles, without any experience or like reading a job description, tell me, describe to me where you'd be happy in your next role. And so it usually has to do with they want to be an individual contributor, they want to be with people, they want to have an external facing customer, they want to be internal, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
understanding outside of what lights you up, then complement that with your motivators. Pick up your top 3 to 5, right? If
Yeah.
it's you want to work with people, you want to work in an office, you want to have an outdoor job, and just really adhere to those motivators throughout your life. They may change as you develop or have more experience. They may not. I don't think mine have. I'm motivated by innovation and transformation. I go where there's change. Like I thrive on change and I like to solve the problem. So my past 4 jobs have been, I've been brought in to transform a team and transform a group of people to have different types of responsibility. And that motivates me. It doesn't work for everyone else, right? But that
Mm-hmm.
motivates me. I like to develop things. I like to innovate. I am too competitive, but I think innovation and probably transformation are my top 2. And then what lights me up is talking to people. Like I love teaching, mentoring, talking to people, hence why I'm doing this, right? So
Yeah.
I think if anyone graduating, you figure out, to your point, what lights you up, complement that with your motivators, and then stay true to that. And it's not going to always be perfect, but if you follow that guidance, you should have, a pathway that at least you're receiving some kind of gratification in the jobs that you're holding, hopefully. And
Yeah.
if not, move on and get out, right? Because there's plenty of opportunities. But maybe go back and then walk us through maybe another example of a situation that you overcame.
Yeah. Can I add one more thing to what
Yeah,
you just
of
said?
course. Yeah, yeah.
I think that can be hard for someone out of college. Like, what lights you up? What motivates you? What about like, think about something you're proud of from school or
Yep.
even outside of school, like a moment like you stepped up to the plate on something and you felt really good about
Felt
what you
good.
did. And I think that usually you'll find hidden in there something that a catalyst for you to perform
Agreed.
at a different level than you do in other situations.
No, that's fair. That might be a
Yeah.
lot, but I get was something that you've accomplished that you walked away, you're like, wow, that feels really good that I just did
Yeah.
that. If it's you just completed a marathon or you just wrote this stellar essay,
Right.
did this great computer program work, whatever it is, when you
Yeah.
had that feeling that like, oh
Yeah.
wow, I killed it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. That's kind of like
Yeah.
the what lights you up part.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so second example. So I've, gone through a career where when I interview for roles, I tell people I put myself on my own sort of developmental journey. I wanted to learn everything about, in our industry, it's called market access. And I wanted to learn, I'm very motivated by learning. If I get too stagnant, if I don't have enough change or a new problem to solve, I'm distracted and not motivated. So I need a new problem to solve, a new thing to learn. And so about 10 years ago now, I said, I'm going to learn everything there is to know about market access. And there was one particular component of market access, and you know this, Christine, we had lots of conversations about this, that I felt like I didn't have the skills, I didn't have the relationships to enter into that realm, which is very male dominated, by the way. And I actually had mentors, women mentors, and male mentors say to me, when I asked them who worked in this particular area, what do you think about me joining that? Like, would you hire me? How would I get into it? I was just
Hmm.
trying, again, to your point, people
Have the
asking
conversation.
questions.
Yep.
Yeah, like getting on the horn, like, what do you think? Like, once you find someone you respect and you see they've done good work, like asking those questions of those people. And, this one individual, a female, actually said to me, yeah, I don't think you can do it. I don't think you have the right skill set. I don't think you have the right background. I think you have to start from the ground. That's going to take a really
Was
long
she
time. I
older?
don't know
Was
anyone
she
would hire you.
older or
Yeah,
younger than you? She was older than you?
a little older,
A little
a
older.
little older.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember being like really bummed out because I thought she'd be someone who would hire me, maybe. Like she's seen my work. Like if anyone saw that I can learn something, it would be her. And I was really bummed out about it. both personally and professionally, just kind of like, gosh, that stinks. I don't know what's next, because this was my plan, was to learn
Yep.
all these things. And this is the big behemoth I haven't learned about yet, But again, quickly thereafter, I was like, oh, I got to prove her wrong. I can't,
Yeah.
I don't have a choice like that. It was the golden word. You can't, right?
Yeah.
And I sought out other people, and it took me a while. It took me a while to find someone who said, I'll take a chance on you. Let's have you try this out. And it went really well. I learned a lot. Super challenging and exciting to learn about. But I think, I thought it was interesting because it was a female. It was someone who was a friend and mentor and colleague. But I also think it was someone, and this is something that comes up, Christine. I think a lot of times we talk about like females supporting females, and sometimes
Yep.
that's not the case. We
I
can be
agree.
pretty competitive with each other.
I agree.
We can be hard on ourselves. We can be insecure, which has us project in ways that aren't super helpful to other women. I wish we could all be kumbaya and all help each other and lift each other up all the time, but it's not always the case. And I think it's good to tell younger women that could happen, and it's
Yep.
okay. And it doesn't mean they're bad
Right.
people. It doesn't mean you're incompetent. It just means that it can be tricky,
Why
being a
why do you
woman.
think why do you think women, it's not all women either, it's just some women. Why are we so competitive with one another instead of saying, "Hey, let's help each other out." Maybe like exactly, let me tell you an experience, let me give you a pathway of maybe what I did. Why do you think women are so competitive with each other?
Say with confidence, I'm not one of them.
Yeah, I'm
I
not either.
I learned a lot from you, and it's been really important to me. I don't know if I've ever said this to you, like to pay forward what you've done
Yep.
for me, right? Like
Thank you.
I can count many women I've said, well, my mentor, Christine, did this for me, and I'm going to do it for you. And we're going to talk about this. I'm going to help you with, don't give anything back to me. I want to give you
Yep.
some advice for you,
Yep.
right? And it feels good to me to do that
Yep.
for them.
Agreed.
And I'm so happy when it helps them. So it's hard for me to like identify with
Yep.
why women are competitive with women. But what I can guess from my experience with them is they feel sort of, especially when they're a successful woman in a male dominated industry, they feel special. Like they made it with
Mm,
these men, you know,
mm.
and they're like the special case. They don't want other women to make it with them. Like
Got it.
it's more about their identity and what they've done, and they're really unique. And if other women do it, it takes away from their identity.
Presence, their
Yeah, their
presence.
presence, their
Yeah.
success, whatever
Yeah.
that might be, their
Yeah.
uniqueness, that they did it in spite of everything. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
one thing that's been on my mind. But do you have another theory?
No, I agree. I was gonna say, you said it more politely. I was gonna say they consider it like more of a threat. Like it's
Yeah.
almost as, I agree with you. Another, and I don't even know if they see him as equal, but another woman who's intelligent, right, is
Mhm.
going to be on par with them. And now they feel like it's a competition because one has to win. And it doesn't have to be that one wins. We can both win. But
Yeah.
I think that, we try to um, grow in our careers and professionally develop and move up in terms of, not just titles, but in your scope of work. And so you're always trying to climb it. You're always competitive, usually with a man or a male, which we also react differently to that because some men treat us differently. And so maybe
Hmm.
that's the female version's way of reacting to competition coming in, is saying, no, like I killed myself to get to this point and I
Hmm.
got this. And you go somewhere else and try harder because this
Yes.
is my space. I think we're saying the same thing, but it's more like a threat
Yeah.
instead of saying, God, how cool would this be if I could bring her on board? We could work together, or I can teach her some things, and then allow that woman to come in. And if she's better than you, so freaking be it. Let her be
Oh, yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And then you move on to something else. Like, I
Yeah.
don't, yeah, it doesn't have to be like it's just one of us. I think we have to
No.
have a more open mind to say it should be teaching the younger and our colleagues, like we should be going in together, just like men do, right? They're all sitting
Absolutely.
around having conversations how to make each other better. So no, I think that's a good point that you made, and hopefully people out there hear that and to pay it forward and to continue to teach and mentor, because these experiences and these conversations, this is what the younger generation definitely needs to hear in order to gain that confidence. So I'm going to close it up with one more question for you. And then, of course, anything else you want to mention or ask. But again, you gave a lot of great advice in terms of what lights you up, what makes you feel proud, what are your motivators. But if you were to say, a couple of things to that younger generation, just to kind of summarize it, graduating college, focusing on females for sure, but it can be males too, is what would be kind of some bullets that you would want to communicate to them?
Yeah.
I tried to
I
use
think we've
as
hit on it.
many words as I could to give you enough time to think of that answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big
Um,
one. That's a big
I think
one.
we've covered a lot of it,
Yeah.
So first of all, I think graduating college, listen, the professional world's different than college.
Yep.
So get ready to take accountability, do whatever you need to do to get excited, maybe scare yourself a little bit. I get motivated by scaring myself a little, like I got to do this, right? Because now you're on your own. Like it's your turn to
Yep.
figure out the rest, however many years of your life for your career, and you want it to be a good life. So, get excited about that. I think the motivators, the saying yes, the being scrappy, even when it comes to finding jobs, like
Yep.
think about it, be creative, think outside the box when you're trying to do those things. The last piece of advice we haven't covered that I do a lot and it's helped me is find people you admire.
Mm.
So find someone who maybe, you recognize what your motivators are, what sense of direction you might want to go in, and you love how someone does something.
Yep.
Talk to them, observe them,
Yep.
watch them, have a conversation. What is it they do that you could do better? And you will grow.
Yep.
And then you'll do it again and again and continue finding people that are ahead of you. And I think some people talk about it like jealousy. It's not jealousy. Oh, I see you and I see what you're doing and I'd love to be able to operate at that level. How do I get there? How do I bridge this gap? And I think if you do that over and over again, you find a path. You're following people along a path that's already been laid for you to success. So that would be another piece of advice I'd leave.
One thing I do tell people, even not just graduating students, but women that I mentor or colleagues, is I don't think women take enough time to invest in their network. And so not just your internal network at work, so not just like your leaders or your
Yeah.
manager or your boss, you should have, I always say, 3 internal network females and 3 external outside of your organization. Intentionally make time once a quarter, once every 6 weeks, whatever it is, to meet with one of them proactively, block out your calendar and have a conversation. And it can be just talking about what you're doing, ask them about what they're doing. And to your point, listen and learn from them.
Yeah.
But you can't just expect that that's going to happen without you being intentional and proactively making time for yourself and being your own advocate, because no one's going to give you the job. No one cares. You have to care. You have to motivate yourself. You have to move it forward. And I say, make that time and always keep your network and your brand. Always work on your brand, because I think even if you get comfortable in your job, you still need to be making sure that you're growing, and people need to have a checkpoint. And then even if you don't know anyone, email someone on LinkedIn and ask them, hey, I'd love to learn about your job. Here's my background. Do you have time to talk for 30 minutes and have a different conversation? And they will give you pieces of information you may like and some that you may not. And you don't have to take all of it, but you have to listen to something different. So
I love that.
yeah. So
I'm not doing a good enough job of that. So just kudos. Thank you for continuing to mentor me.
You just had your 3rd child and you just got back to work. So give yourself a hot minute and give yourself some grace, and maybe in a couple months, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't do everything all the time.
It's true.
So again, I want to thank you for being on the show. Any last minute words or last phrases you want to throw out there?
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for doing this. This is amazing. I look forward to hearing the podcast.